Hey everyone, this is Haley from Cartooners, and today I would once again like to talk about the Ben 10 reboot. Now, I have talked about this show before, but this time I want to try to give a more positive spin on the show and see if I can find any potential it does have. I know my last video was quite a negative one, so I wanted to try to balance things out by potentially seeing that it has more to offer than it might initially appear. So now the first thing I want to talk about this was the season finale, the season 1 finale, which was actually a 4-parter, which I did not expect at all, but I guess, that is a very possible thing to happen. Cartoon Network does tend to do this quite often with their shows, for their 11-minute shows especially, where they'll make a 2-parter or even 4-parter in this case. And this episode was called Omnitricked, and for many, this was the best episode of the series so far. And of course, I'm going to go over what happens a little bit in the episode, so beware of spoilers. So in this episode, we actually see that Ben starts off by turning into a new alien. I don't think this has happened yet before. It started, with a reboot. He started off with just 10 aliens. They did change the lineup a little bit, and mostly it's just the original 10. So not too much creativity there, and just used, a couple of the more powerful ones. I'd say, they got rid of like Wild Mutt and Ripjaws, who were probably less useful in most circumstances. And this new alien just so happens to look like the main villain of the first series and probably a bunch of other series that had to happen. Keep in mind, I have only an expert, I guess, in the original series because I never really watched too much of Ultimate Alien, or especially Omniverse. I did see quite a bit of Alien Force, but the other series I'm not so sure about, and I forgot a lot of what happened there. So anyways, he basically gets a new alien that's pretty much Vilgax right there, and voice in his head tells him to call him Gax. So real original there, guys, but I mean, that is interesting. We get to see him turn into that species. And so this new alien seems to be super powerful. It seems to be able to do a lot of things that Vilgax couldn't even do in the original series, which, does shake things up a bit, although it's kind of ridiculous because he can, shoot lasers out of his eyes. I don't even know if that was a thing ever in the other series. I don't know. But, it's something different. And he kind of screws up along the way because he keeps using Gax. And somehow the randomizer function turns on. And to get this fixed, they actually go back to find a character named Phil. I believe he's a plumber, and he was actually in the original series. And they actually, what was cool about this, they gave him a new spin that he wasn't, a terrible guy. He was actually helpful, and he knew a lot of things. And we even got to see some older characters from the original series, which, if I'm pronouncing all of them correctly, it's Six, Crab, and Tetrax. And so that's not really too important at this moment, probably. But something interesting is that they acknowledge the Omnitrix, and they actually called it the Omnitrix, which apparently that hadn't been said yet in the series so far. It was just called the Watch. And later, we see that something crashes down by Ben, and it actually is this old shriveled up Vilgax. And he was kind of just like, well, since you call yourself Gax, I guess that makes me Vil, which means that the dialogue is cringy as ever, but stick with me here. So he kind of tricks Ben into, getting the Omnitrix and taking it away on the ship so he could, become powerful again. And so we get to see the true Vilgax finally. And with this, something happened actually. So this is a cool part that I think, is that Ben was not able to turn back into himself because it was no longer in the Omnitrix, his DNA to be a human, I believe. And so the randomizer feature is on, but it's just not turning him back into Ben. And he and Vilgax fight, and Vilgax of course wins because he's really powerful. But this brings up a lot of questions, like how did this happen to Vilgax? Why was he in the Watch and stuff? Are they going to bring in other aspects of the older shows into it to explain this or give their own spin on it? So basically, eventually Ben is able to free himself, and, he's able to use Upgrade to mess with Vilgax's ship, which is probably, I can't remember, but that might have been what happened in the original, because it seems like, once again, Vilgax is trying to take the Omnitrix and use it for himself to control the galaxy. But later, in a fight between Upgrade and Vilgax, what actually happens is that Upgrade is able to basically upgrade the Omnitrix, which is pretty cool actually, and he's able to, actually have master control, which is something I loved from the series, when he's actually able to do that. And so he's able to do that and basically beat up Vilgax. And of course, the ship sinks into lava, and they think Gax or Vilgax is dead, but he's not, as usual. But what's interesting is that the Master Control was unfortunately only temporary. But something new about this is that the Omnitrix looks upgraded. And at the very end of the episode, he gets a new alien, which hopefully he gets to keep this time. It looks like it could be a rebooted Gravitak. We don't really know at this point. It could be a totally new alien. And so with that pretty much ends the episode, and with that probably the best episode of the reboot so far. So basically my point in all of this, telling you guys about this whole thing, is basically that, it shows that the reboot actually might be able to do new things. And, even though it took literally four episodes to do this of the 11-minute show, so 44 minutes, which would just be 2 regular episodes of the original series or any other Ben 10 series, it still managed to get the job done. And it seems like, it is using a lot of stuff that we saw in the original series or other series of Ben 10, but at least it's not being totally unoriginal, so I gotta give it credit for that. And, of course the dialogue was still really messy and just cringy, but, at the end of the day, it kind of makes you have a little bit of hope for the reboot. In addition, there were also these shorts recently released that basically went over some cool information about each of the aliens' planets, the main 10 aliens from the reboot. And as a little kid, or when I was younger, I would have died to have something like this. I don't think we did. We barely learned about any of the alien species besides what, Ben directly learns by using their powers and whatnot. We didn't learn about the lore of their species for the most part. Very few we did. So I'm glad to see that, this reboot is doing that from the get-go. We're learning stuff. Sure, it keeps a lot of the stuff the same, but it does change stuff up, even though it's not always the best changes that they made. It's why did they change this? It was fine before. And another thing, going back to the finale, that I should mention is that it actually was written by, the people that are kind of credited for the show, or at least the original, which is Man of Action. And that could be part of why that episode was actually decent. I'm not entirely sure, because apparently they were just they didn't have the biggest influence on the original series, so maybe it wasn't them that actually made the series so great. But for this show, they are actually they haven't really wrote too much, but the episodes, they've only written 5 episodes, and actually it's a single or 1 or 2 of them that write an episode. And it's only been 5 out of the 20 plus episodes we've gotten, I believe. So that could kind of lead to this reboot having bad quality. So maybe if they step in a little bit more, maybe things will start to improve. So I'm hoping for that, because this finale was decent and Man of Action had a part in it, so I was glad to see that. While I still do not like what this reboot is entirely, I do have a little bit of hope for it now, seeing the finale plus these little bits of lore that we're getting here and there. And it's not literally the worst reboot I've ever seen. There are worse out there, and unfortunately it seems like all the negatively rated reboots are those that were done in the original shows were in the 2000s or very end of the 90s. And because of that, it seems like the creators of these reboots didn't grow up with the show, so don't have as much care, or don't take as much effort into making them, which is really sad to see, because Ben 10 was definitely a big part of my childhood, and seeing it mess with this occasion like this time and time again really breaks my heart. But I do have hope at the end of the day. So guys, let me know your thoughts about this. Do you think there's any redemption for the Ben 10 reboot, or is it already way too late for it to see any positives and it will just be another bad reboot of Cartoon Network? Let me know down in the comments below, and I will sure to check them out so I can talk to you guys about that. Also, don't forget to subscribe as always, and click the notification bell so you can get notifications if you want to see me do more videos like this, where I kind of go on scripted and talk about some of my favorite or unfavorite shows. Just let me know down in the comments as well. So thank you Patreon supporters for supporting videos like these, because these are definitely not the regular theory videos, but I still love talking about cartoons, even if it's not like the big ones like Steven Universe. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video.